Welcome to Yankee Chronicle. I'm your host, Abby Peel, and today we are coming to you from Main Street Bookends in Warner, a family-owned independent bookstore serving the New Hampshire area since 1998. Today we have a special presentation, the League of Women Voters Forum of candidates to be voted on March 12th, followed on Wednesday with the town meeting. After these words from our underwriters, we will join the moderator to hear from the candidates.
This program is supported by H.R. Clough and Kearsarge Heating. Their full-service model offers oil delivery, propane, motor fuels with design, installation, service, and maintenance of all types of oil, gas, and alternative energy systems, as well as air conditioning, water conditioning systems, and their highly trained and friendly staff will assist you throughout the process of buying, installing, and servicing a full line of energy products. H.R. Clough and Kearsarge Heating. Echo Communications, a digitally integrated commercial printer and mailer located in New London, New Hampshire since 1997, with roots going back much further as the country press, AccuMail, and the home of the Kearsarge shopper. Echo Communications. Main Street Bookends of Warner, for books, toys, games, cards, gifts, and a gallery of local art. Main Street Bookends of Warner. The Innertown Record, your weekly hometown community newspaper covering the Kearsarge Sunapee Sunshine region of New Hampshire. The Innertown Record.
Hi, good evening and welcome to the League of Women Voters New London Town Forum. My name is Pat Rogers and I'll be your moderator tonight. As you know, the League of Women Voters is a non-partisan organization. We do not support or oppose candidates. I would like to introduce the candidates. Before we begin, we have running for one seat on the select board. We have Janet Kidder and Emma Phipps. For the Budget Committee, running for 3 seats, we have Peter Bianchi. They're sitting in alphabetical order if you can't see them. Megan Brown, Karen Epstein, Bob Lyon. There are 2 other candidates that were not able to make it tonight because of work commitments, and that is Travis Sniffen and John Tilley. They were given the opportunity to submit a written statement, which I will read at the end of the opening statements. So we're all ready. We will begin. Opening statements. Janet Kidder.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you, Patricia Rogers and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. As a resident of New London for over 50 years, I have tried to follow my mother-in-law's advice. P.D. Kidder was not someone to be ignored. She told me to not only support the institutions and organizations in New London monetarily, but to volunteer time, to make New London an even better place to live. I responded to her direction by volunteering at the New London Hospital, reading to New London elementary school students, and helping with outing club events. I was a founder and treasurer of the Chargers Club, which is the athletic booster club of Colby Sawyer College. Currently, I am on the Lakes Advisory Committee for the state of New Hampshire. I was a director and officer of the New London Historical Society. Select board members serve on the Planning Board, the Budget Committee, the Tri-Town Assessing Committee, and meet with the Sunapee Sewer Commissioners on a regular basis. I have served 4 terms on the Select Board. There are many issues that face our town. Housing is one. The Twin Pines project, which will be built behind the shopping center, will have 60 units of affordable housing. The president of Colby Sawyer College, the president of New London Hospital, and the superintendent of the Kearsarge Regional School District have noted that job openings have been difficult to fill due to the lack of housing. And it is to be hoped that the Twin Pines project will partially fulfill that need. Another major issue is the inadequacy of the current police station. This issue has been deferred for over 20 years. After numerous meetings based on the master plan, the capital improvement program, and the desire of the residents, the Select Board is committed to determining whether the current police station can be made safe and meet the requirements of a 21st century police department and communications center, or locate another site that will meet that criteria. The town has hired professional services paid for with funds from the American Rescue Plan Act in an attempt to evaluate the current site and determine the costs of renovation or locate another site, design the building, and outline the cost of construction. If the Bucher building is vacated by the Police Department and Communication Center, there are a number of uses for the building, including storage of voting materials and an office for the supervisors of the checklist, community center, space for town boards and committees, storage of tables and chairs when Whipple is being used for other events, space for clean recyclables, emergency management office and center, space for nonprofits, for example, the Center for the Arts, the Garden Club, Kearsarge Community Band, and an office for the welfare officer to meet with individuals privately, and a child center, uses that would benefit the town in numerous ways. In conclusion, I am grateful to have raised our sons in this community. I am committed to addressing the current needs of the town while understanding the importance of having a vision for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Before Select Board, Emma Phipps.
Hello, my name is Emma Phipps, and I am running for the office of Selectman in New London. I am 24 years old, and I have lived in New London area since I was 4. I love this town, and after getting my degree in psychology from Roger Williams University, I immediately returned to make it my home. I am currently serving the New London community as a site director at the Boys and Girls Club in town. My education and who I am as a person would inspire me to use my position as selectman to look for cooperative solutions to any issues the town faces, to ask questions to better understand those issues, and to listen to all voices. During my time in college and beyond, my experience has allowed me to become adept at analyzing issues, asking important questions, and gathering information before making any decisions or recommendations. If I'm elected, I would work to have a cooperative and positive demeanor for the benefit and the future of our town. As a young woman with limited savings and limited income, I have experienced the difficulties associated with working in entry-level positions, including in the elementary school. This would allow me to bring to town discussions the issues that most affect young people with families and limited income, an important approach as we discuss workforce housing and how to accommodate those who work in New London, including how those issues may apply to our college students. As someone who's recently graduated, I know the amenities that a town can have to best support students. I believe that building and nurturing a relationship between the town and Colby Sawyer students will benefit our town and businesses in a variety of ways. Through my experience and standing, I believe I will bring new ideas and a new thinking to the process. I will learn and teach others about its town, its committees, its boards and commissions, and their role in the community. As a dear friend told me, information can be found. It's what you do with it that matters. I will be making this ideal my priority in serving the town on the Select Board.
Thank you. All right, for the Budget Committee, Peter Bianchi.
Good evening. My name is Peter C. Bianchi, not to be mistaken for my father, former Selectman R. Peter Bianchi. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this evening's event. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in New London and have been a resident for over 40 years. I'm a graduate of Kearsarge Regional High School and have a bachelor's degree in business from St. Anselm College and a master's degree in education from Plymouth State University. I'm currently in my 24th year as a math teacher at Kearsarge Regional High School, and our 2 children are students at New London Elementary. I'm also currently a director on the New London Service Organization. My wife Hannah, children Dean and Mia, and dog Fritz live on Job Siemens Acres in the house previously owned by my 9th grade social studies teacher, Wally Sanders. My wife and I consider ourselves very fortunate to be able to raise our children in a community as wonderful as New London. New London's 2 public beaches, the phenomenal Tracy Library, concerts on the Common, ice skating on the public rink, miles of hiking trails are just some of the town's offerings that will make our children's childhood as memorable as mine. In addition to the wonderful recreation activities available in the town, we're equally fortunate to have outstanding public services, ensuring that New London remains a safe and secure place to call home. Our police, fire, and public works department are all staffed by dedicated professionals who all contribute to the quality of life we enjoy here in New London. Having all these wonderful opportunities and services available to residents of New London comes at a cost and makes the budgetary process an important and sometimes challenging one. Conversations must be had and compromises must be made to ensure that all we love about living in New London remain available without being financially prohibitive. I would very much like to be part of those conversations. If elected, I will serve as a well-informed, unbiased voice on the committee to represent the best interests of all residents. I will never claim to have all the answers, but I will actively participate in the process so that the best possible outcome might be achieved. I would greatly appreciate your vote on May 12th. Again, Peter C. Bianchi. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Peter C. Our next candidate is Megan Brown.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate everyone who came out tonight. It's wonderful to meet you and to have this opportunity to introduce myself and share a little bit of why I am running for the Budget Committee. So I'm Meg Brown. I have lived in New London since 2017. We first moved here with my husband when our oldest at the time, who was about 8 months old, looking for really the best place to raise our family while balancing our working and professional lives. Prior to, and a little bit about my history, I guess. So I have considered myself a New Hampshire resident. It's been my home for all of my adult life. I grew up in northern Vermont, but did my undergraduate at UNH, where I studied biochemistry. And while I was at UNH, did ROTC. And so following my graduation there, I commissioned as an officer in the United States Army. I spent about a little over 4 years in the Army. Most of that time was at Fort Hood in Texas, and also had a deployment to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom during that time. For those of you who have served in the military or know family members that have been in the military, you get lots of great experience and many jobs, whether you like them or not. And many of the opportunities I had as a leader in the military also include running our unit's budget. And so bringing that experience into hopefully some of the roles and responsibilities here in town. Following my time in the military, I got out, I went back to pharmacy school, where I came back to New Hampshire, attended Mass College of Pharmacy in Manchester, where I got my doctorates of pharmacy, and was fortunate to find a job here in New Hampshire at the Dartmouth Cancer Center. So I spent about 10 years working in the Cancer Center, ultimately taking on some leadership positions. And at the time I left Dartmouth, I was overseeing the investigational pharmacies as well as the Cancer Center pharmacy. And also, again, in that role, having a lot of experience running a large pharmacy budget as well as running our clinical operations. And I've since left. I now work actually remotely, working for Pfizer Oncology in a role where I really look at quality of care for cancer patients. And a lot of what I do now really looks at data and outcomes for patients and how we improve that care. I have a family there's 5 of us. We have 3 young kids. Our oldest, Jack, is 7. He goes to school here in New London. Our middle, Carter, is 5. He'll be starting kindergarten in the fall. And then our youngest, Maddie, although she would probably like to start kindergarten in the fall, she's 2.5, and she has a few more years in daycare before she'll join her brothers. But I'm really excited for this opportunity. What I really hope to get out of this is to bring my past experience with managing budgets, but also working on teams and with committees to really lead a collaborative approach, be a voice for the community, understanding we live in a wonderful town. And I think we all appreciate many things about what New London has to offer, but how do we best ensure that it stays that wonderful town? And I'm a thoughtful, collaborative leader. And, really it's hope that the time that I can offer to this committee helps support and provides a voice for those of you in the town as we work through concerns with the budget and also planning for the future. So thank you, and looking forward to your questions tonight.
Okay, thank you. Karen Epstein.
Thank you, Bob. So nice being here with you this evening. Good evening. I am Karen Epstein and a candidate for Budget Committee. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for organizing and hosting this forum, fellow candidates for participating, and you, the audience, both in person and via YCN. Our beautiful town of New London is a special place, and I feel most fortunate living here. The Budget Committee is an independent committee of the town Its purpose is to assist voters in the prudent appropriation of public funds, a solemn responsibility and one where my skills and independence are a good fit. These are fiscally and economically challenging times, more so for some than others. Factoring in the impact of spending decisions on the tax burden and assessing trade-offs should always be part of any analysis. This is especially important with major long-term and impactful decisions on the horizon. I would approach spending deliberations with an open mind, finding solutions that both meet the needs of today and are sustainable into the future. Over the past year, I have immersed myself in building an understanding about our town, its government, learning how all the many moving parts fit and work together. This endeavor has made me a regular at meetings of the Board of Selectmen, Budget Committee, Planning Board, Housing Commission, Energy Committee, Citizens Committee, and the New London Springfield Water Precinct. Also included was a tour of the wastewater treatment plant in Sunapee, a tour which I highly recommend. Fascinating. From attending the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee meetings, I have learned about the work of the Conservation Commission, the Library Trustees, Recreation, Waste Reduction Committee, and Board of Fire Wards. So many hardworking and talented people keep New London the special place that it is. It has been terrific getting to know our town professionals, elected and appointed officials, and fellow residents. I have learned much and am impressed by their expertise, good intentions, and diligent efforts. With almost 30 years in the finance profession, my most relevant experience was at Bank Boston as a vice president in government finance. My role was serving the financing needs of Massachusetts cities, towns, and school districts, advising and guiding them in the structuring and issuing of debt. This required a detailed examination and disclosure of the issuer's finances, demographics, tax base, and more. Being newly retired, I have the time and energy to fully commit to and prepare for the serious work of the Budget Committee. I look forward to hearing tonight what is on your mind as you deliberate on your voting decision. Thank you.
Bob Lyon.
Thank you. It's great to see a lot of friendly faces out there. It's a great looking audience, I must admit. I'm going to do things a little bit different. I'm going to talk about what I see going on in the community right now. Then I'll talk about why I feel that I should be on the Budget Committee, and then talk a little bit about my family and myself. So I'm going to have a little bit of audience participation as well. So last year, the community went through a reassessment of property values. Whose taxes went up, if you could raise your hand? Did everybody's? I see a lot of hands going up. That's tax number one. Tax number two, did you know that this year we're going to have another tax increase? In the budget we vote on next week at the town meeting, it's going to be 60 cents on every $1,000 of assessed value. If you have a $500,000 house, you're going to be looking at a $300 approximately increase in your taxes. That's number two. Number three, who knows about the water main work that's going to take place this summer? Raise your hand. Does anybody? So people do know about that. Good. You're going to be voting next week on a $5 million bond issue to pay for that. That's going to be coming out of an increase in tax to people living in the water precinct. That's tax number three. Tax number four, the talk about the police station, whether or not we renovate it or if we move it to a new place, that's going to be funded by taxpayer dollars. And estimates have come in anywhere from $3 million to, say, $14 million. We don't have a firm number yet, but that tax could be significant. That's tax number four. Tax number five is more of a longer-term thing. Who's aware of the water issues that we have in town? Raise your hand. A lot of people are aware of the water issues. I would highlight it's not a crisis at this point, but we are looking down the road. According to the water precinct, we're reaching our maximum capacity of the water supply. When we reach that, or once we get close to it, and no one can tell us when that will happen, but it's bound to happen at some point. When that happens, we're looking at, say, $11 to $20 million in spending to add to our water supply. That's tax number five. I don't bring this up to hammer on taxes. What I bring this up for is to really let you know what my approach would be to working on the Budget Committee. What I'd like to do is bring a balance between the needs of the community and the needs of the taxpayer. So the needs of the community and the needs of the taxpayer. In the community, of course, the police department, the fire department, the recreation department, the highway department, the school system, all the other organizations in town that I didn't mention, those are all critical. it's also critical that we think about the taxpayer and the increasing taxes, and I mentioned just 5, and they continue to grow. They continue to grow at an accelerated rate. So one pushback that people talk about is they say, well, you know, Bob, this is a very wealthy town. We have a lot of wealth in this town, a lot of wealthy retired people, and this is true. I think this is a very wealthy town, and we're very fortunate to live here. On the other hand, there are people here that are doing not so well, and I have it on good authority. My wife is the director of the food pantry. She told me tonight that last year in 2023, there were over 50 New London families that took benefits from the food pantry in terms of getting free food. And that speaks a lot. So not everybody can just absorb these tax increases. So what I would bring to the table, what I would hope to bring to the table is to find some balance. So what makes me qualified to do this? I had a 30-year career in pharmaceutical research and development. I led global project teams around the world. I have a good feel for how teams work. I know about interpersonal dynamics. I know how to get things done. The other part of that is that I've managed or co-managed multi-million-dollar project budgets up to $12 million a year, including spending, what we called outside spending, and personnel costs. So I'm very familiar with handling budgets. A little bit about myself and my family. My wife, Joanne, and I, we moved here 6 years ago after I retired from Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati. Immediately fell in love with the town, just immediately. And I named it the Gem of New England. And you will see that in my letters. You'll see that on the handout I have. If you'd like to grab a handout, you can do that. It's just the gem of New England. We love it here. We immediately became involved in what's going on in volunteer work. So actually, I'll start with my wife. Joanne is the director of the food pantry. She's also the co-manager of the thrift shop. Together, we are bartenders at Woodcrest Senior Living. We are property monitors for Osbon Sargent. We're members of St. Andrew's Church, and I have to admit that my wife does a lot more at the church than I do. But we do that together. We also work with the NESA, the Adaptive Athlete Program at Mount Sunapee, so we're involved there. And for myself, when I came up here, first I got involved with the Colby Sawyer Adventures in Learning program, where I was a teacher, a study leader. I was on 4 different committees, including the Finance Committee, and I was also on the Board of Directors for 3 years. I stopped doing that because I started substitute teaching. So I am a substitute teacher at Kearsarge High School and Middle School. So we love the community. We love to see this continue to go as it is. We love the town. It's the gem of New England. If you think that I would be worthy to take a crack at working on the Budget Committee, I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As I said, we have 2 candidates that are not here tonight. Travis Sniffen has not submitted a statement, and I have one from John Tilley that I'll read for you briefly now. My name is John Tilley, and I ask for your vote on the New London Budget Committee. Many apologies for missing the candidate forum. I am on the road for YMCA Camp Coniston over the next few weeks. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. I first saw New London 25 years ago as I interviewed to become the CEO of Camp Coniston. Tricia and I knew immediately this was the perfect place to raise our daughters and become involved in our community and state. That is why I have served terms on the planning board, volunteered for over 15 years as a ballot clerk, and served on St. Andrew's Vestry. My goal is to ensure New London's budget reflects our town's priorities and needs while maintaining a balance between spending and revenue. It goes without saying we can't afford everything. In general, I feel we do a pretty good job of funding daily operations. I simultaneously think we have kicked some cans down the road that will eventually cost us more than any immediate savings we may derive from delays such as water, sewage, and other capital projects needing replacement. I pledge to work collaboratively with the other committee members, town officials, and residents to find optimal solutions. I bring 25 years' experience in finance through Coniston's $5 million budget, financial consulting with YMCAs across the country, treasurer and audit chair of the American Camping Association New England, and a decade on the YUSA National Strategic Plan Committee. In friendship, John Tilley. All right, so you have all the opening statements. You've been very patient. Who would like to ask? Yes. No, I announced that, no. And he just let me know today, so I guess he didn't have time. He's also out on work assignment. All right, for the first question, I'm getting flagged? Okay. Yes, this is our timer. Nancy, raise your hand. There you go. And in the rules you agreed to, you will not take more than 2 minutes to answer any question. Nancy is there to give you a little hand. If she holds up the yellow poster, that means you have 30 seconds left. If she holds up the red one, that means finish your sentence. All right. So we'll turn this over to you now. Who has an opening question?
Just to follow Mr. Lyons' opening statement, it's kind of coming from why I kind of just took what you said. You made references to the community and the taxpayer and the difference between them. And I kind of think they're the same. Where do you see the difference between the taxpayer and the community?
Sorry for the confusion. What I meant by that is the community support. So the police department, the fire department, the school system, the highway department, all the different support groups versus the taxpayer. So what I mean by that, certainly we have to fund the police department, and there's a debate going on in town right now. What is the best way to build them a new police station? And there's a high end and there's a low end for that. And I think that's where the consideration of the taxpayer comes in. So if I think of it with the taxpayer in mind, I'm more inclined to think of the lower end, the renovation, the lower end cost, which would be a renovation. If I think, and I'm just making up a wild example here, so this isn't anything based that I've seen. Let's say we need a new fire truck, and there's one that could cost $2 million, but there's another one that costs $1.2 million, and it's as good, it just doesn't have as many bells or whistles. I think going for the $1.2 million, provided it has that value, that's a way of thinking of the taxpayer. It's reducing that tax burden on the taxpayer. You're right, they're totally intertwined, they're inseparable, but a lot of the spending goes to the support services that we have in town, and that money is coming from the taxpayer. Does that answer your question?
Okay, no, excuse me, thank you. We're going to try and concentrate on questions that pertain to all of our candidates, so they all have a chance to answer. You can certainly speak to anyone up here if you have a specific question for one candidate. Okay, yes, sir.
So this is a question for all four members of the Budget Committee. As you attended a Budget Committee meeting in the last 6 months, and if you have, what is your observation of the Budget Committee process?
Okay, we're going to start this with Peter C. Bianchi.
My wife served on the most recent term. As such, I was not able to attend, but I was able to watch some on the interweb, and I think your question was, what do I see? Like, I think.
I mean, how does the process work? Would there be improvements in the process? What would you do differently?
I mean, I think there might be some different, meeting norms set. I felt like there were times where they didn't seem to be talking much about the budget concerns about something, but they got off track, it would seem, from my observation. I'm a math teacher, but I think it felt like we could have been talking about this, but they were talking about something else. And I think maybe some more focus, maybe some more meeting norms to kind of make sure we stay within the rails of what's being discussed.
Okay, Megan?
Thank you. So I have attended some of the recent budget committee meetings, and I think should I get elected into this position, I would certainly have a period of just kind of getting up to speed. But having gone through previous meeting minutes and where I see the opportunity and kind of where I operate, and just my experience with running budgets, I love data. I like being transparent with data to understand kind of where our strategic priorities or values are for the community, and how does that relate to our budget. I think a little bit more understanding on what the plan for future investments, that capital improvement plan, and how are we tracking towards that budget to help the budget committee make decisions, but also to be transparent as a community member. I think there's a lot that historical knowledge and understanding that the committee members have, which is fantastic that they've given that time, but how do we make that information more available or accessible to the community? Community has less time so that they feel informed. So I think there might be opportunities to make sure that we can share kind of where the decisions are and what the plan looks like in a transparent manner.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you, and thank you for that question. What stands out to me as having been kind of through the cycle for the past year and had the privilege of attending where department heads are presenting and all, what strikes me is a couple of things, is the importance of setting direction in terms of what it is the committee is looking for in terms of whether it be a budget increase percentage-wise or a budget decrease, just setting those clear directions ahead of time. Also, particularly in the past, I think one of the very recent meetings, there was a talk about process, and I thought that was really important. And one thing that really jumped out at me is the time that it takes to commit to the committee, to be fully prepared and engaged. And that is where I think I can really bring a lot to the table there. As I said, I'm newly retired. I have the time, the interest, and having seen the process play out for the past year, I think I know where I can add some value, because I would really look forward to being a member of the team, yet at the same time carving out the space where I could show the commitment to the time and the energy to be always prepared and fully prepared for the deliberations. We have a lot in coming down the road, and so that forward-thinking part of it really needs to be front and center. So that's what I would bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Thanks, Jerry, for that question. I've been to one budget committee meeting just recently, a few weeks back, and it's far little time to really make a comment about how that committee works. I don't really know the people. I don't know their agendas. I don't know how they work together as a team. I don't really know much about the leadership, but those are things that I'll figure out, again, going back on my project leadership training and skills. But I have talked to a few people on the committee. I won't comment on that because it's not direct observation. I think there are some things that, if what I've heard is true, I think there's some room for improvement that we can make. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to take one of the written questions, which hopefully won't take too long to answer, and we will begin with Emma. Who did you accept contributions from for your campaign, either in cash or advertising, and does that make you beholden to anyone after the election?
I accepted some cash donations from both Peter Ruth and Bob Bowers, who have been extremely helpful, and they've been essentially my mentors throughout this entire campaign, and I'm beyond grateful for it. But I don't think that taking contributions necessarily means that I will have to act a certain way or owe anybody my opinion.
Thank you. Peter?
I've accepted no contributions from anyone.
Okay. That's easy. Megan?
Thank you. So I've accepted contributions from Christina Helm, and lots of contributions from my husband and my family on supporting just getting my name out there. And but it's really been a donation of time and a lot of effort to get a public media campaign support.
Okay, thank you. Karen?
I have accepted contributions from my husband in my, through our joint checking account. So that is where it has begun and ended. Thank you.
And Bob?
So not really a contribution. It's actually an interesting story. I was out with John last week putting up signs, campaign signs, and we were driving down the road, and all of a sudden this car pulls up right behind us, and I thought they were going to crash into us. And I pulled off the road, and they followed us. And I stopped, and they got right behind me. They jumped out of the car, and they said, "Oh, you're putting up these signs. Let me give you $100. And we were like, "What? $100? And he wouldn't take it back. We tried to force it to him. We put it in his car. He kept giving it back. So it wasn't a contribution that we used. We've decided to give that to the local food pantry as a contribution. So I've not taken any contributions. My campaign has all been self-supported.
Okay, thank you. All right, we can move on to someone from the audience, and we'll be beginning with, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm self-funded.
All right, it's a question about your approach to budgeting. Are you a bottoms-up person or a top-down person? A bottoms-up, just correct me if I'm wrong, you look at costs and work your way up from there, and a top-down person has a set amount of money and they just let it figure it out what they can afford. So, Megan, are you a bottoms-down person or a
Thank you for
bottoms up, top down?
Thank you for that question, and I appreciate where I think you're trying to go with kind of response or understand the candidates. But I think when forming a budget, I take the approach of, I guess you would lean more towards the bottoms up of what are our operating costs, what are our inflexible points in our budget. But even then, I've gone through, speaking to my time in working in the pharmacy, everyone knows that healthcare was really touched by challenging times. And I think that there's still, when you have clear priorities and objectives you have to meet, things we have to support to keep the vitality of our community running. But I think there's also sometimes some unique approaches you can take when you need to look at cost-cutting strategies and really leaning on the other experts to understand what efficiencies can be gained and how do you best position. So, I don't think it's about spending all the money, but I do think you have to be thoughtful on what are the key priorities or functions that we need to maintain and also plan for the future. So it might be a combination of that approach.
Okay, Karen?
Thank you for the question. I would see it as starting with what are we working with in terms of funding. For example, we've just heard Bob articulate some of the challenges ahead in terms of whether it be water precinct, police, fire, just a lot of capital needs coming down the road. And how I would look at it is we're looking at a kind of a pool in that the taxpayer, for example, may live in the water precinct, lives in the town. So and we have the school district as well. Nothing happens in those in a vacuum. So it's very important in my mind to be cognizant of what are the other demands on the taxpayer. So I think it's important to know where you're starting at the top and what you have to spend, and make those determinations on where the trend has been. I think at some of the recent meetings there's been pointed out that we're on somewhat of a growth trend in terms of what is on the taxpayer. So we need to always keep that in the front of the mind, is where we want to go in terms of the tax burden, and do that balancing act between that and the services. But I think it's really important that your department heads have a sense of direction so that they know what it is they have to work with. So that's where I would start, is what do I have to work with, and go from there.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm not sure if I'm a bottoms-up or a top-down person, but the way that I would approach the budget, the way that I used to handle my project budgets, you first look at your fixed costs. Excuse me. And a lot of the fixed costs are personnel costs. So we have people employed by the town that have to be paid. They have retirement plans that have to be funded. They have medical benefits that have to be funded. Those costs are not going to go away. They're not going to change except maybe for an annual raise. So we start off with all of the fixed costs, and that tells us, okay, that's our starting point. Then I think as Karen said, I would want to know from each department head, police department, fire department, highway department, rec department, what are their plans, what are their needs? And I think in there, where we start looking at is costs that can be discretionary. So do we really need it? Is this discretionary or is it non-discretionary? So non-discretionary might be the new fire truck that needs to be purchased. So you can look at that, okay, we need a new fire truck. What kind of fire truck are we going to get? I keep using the example of a fire truck. Please understand this is just an example. But discretionary versus non-discretionary. Discretionary spending, I think I would take a very hard look at. Again, because I tie this back to the taxpayer. What are we going to have to do to this budget? Is this budget going to increase taxes? I think we should be looking at budgets that the aim is to reduce taxes. So if that answers whether I'm top down or bottom up, I'm not sure, but that's how I would approach it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Janet?
I think the selectmen take a holistic approach with the budget. They look at it as knowing what's coming before them. For example, when they put the water lines in this summer, we will tear up the sidewalks along Main Street from Spring Ledge Farm to Squires Lane. So this would not be a good time to, or wouldn't be necessary to put money into the sidewalk budget, that type of thing. So if we know something is going to be happening in 25 or 26, we may wait till then to fund that. And I think we look at what's looming, like maybe we're not going to pave a dirt road this year. We may wait till next year, or we may not want to put money in the conservation fund because we know that there isn't any property that might be available for them to purchase. So we kind of look at the whole thing. So I wouldn't say it was top down or bottom up. I think it's a holistic approach at looking at the budget.
Okay, thank you. Emma?
So I kind of have two answers to this. My long answer would be like that, it's a kind of a balancing act. And like other candidates said, like you really do have to look at all of the factors involved. But my short answer would probably be top down.
Okay, thank you. Peter C.?
In addition to being the teacher at the school, I've been the head of the math department for the last 2 years, and that has given me some insight into the budgetary process, which is different. We have to work, I think it would be top down, as we get told you have X amount of money, and we figure out who needs textbooks, who needs this, who needs that. So I guess my experience would be that, but I think I know it works different. It has to work differently here in a municipality, but I don't think it's a bad mindset to have, to say that, well, we've got to kind of keep it in mind, keep some guardrails on to some extent. Obviously, we have to plan for things. Obviously, we have to foresee things that are coming down the road, big projects and all. But I guess I would be more of a top-down person.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask the audience to help us out up here. If I notice some of you are not using your microphones yet, if you can't hear them during a question, why don't you just raise your hand silently, and they'll know to lean in more to their microphone. All right, I have another question here from the audience, and we're starting this round with Karen Epstein. It's for both the Select Board and the Budget Committee. Would you support regular pay increases for town employees at the level of the Consumer Price Index and/or merit increases for town employees every year?
Well, that's a good question, and I think how I would approach that is one, acknowledging that the town has just gone through a wage assessment and has just passed a number of increases to reflect the competitive market. And so I think, from my understanding, that we're in good shape in that regard. So going forward, I think it's something that you always want to stay current with what your peer towns are doing. And at the same time, have look toward what you have laid out in terms of a merit schedule. But it would be premature for me to kind of really weigh in on that. My style tends to be, if I really would want to get into the details to see where we are and what we have just accomplished in terms of those adjustments, and take it from there and always looking at what is in the competitive marketplace. So that's where I would start the evaluation. And I think it's one of those things where you have a lot of conversation and dialogue with your department heads and the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen. So it's really a very joint conversation.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
Thank you. So I'll draw back on my experience excuse me, with Procter & Gamble and how we did it there. I'm not sure it's relevant here, but there's a few points that I think are germane. One, I think money is a big driver. Okay, I know it was in my career. People, if you think of merit raises, people will work harder when they think there's something at the end of the rainbow. I think they work harder, they work better if they know there can be a merit increase. So if you have 3 people in an office and there's no chance of getting a merit raise, why would you even try to work harder? Why would you try to improve yourself? So I'm a believer in a merit system. I don't know how much we can afford for that, but I think it certainly has to be there. I think it's human nature to do that. So separate from that, we need to certainly have, I would think, raises every year, at least to keep up with inflation. I mean, we have to I don't know if that's tied to the consumer price index. I kind of think it as terms of keeping up with inflation, kind of like as Social Security does. We get those raises every year. But I think that part is, that's just price of entry, getting a standard raise like that. But the merit raise, I think, is important because I think, again, it's human nature to try to work harder, and I think people who work harder and better should be rewarded.
Thank you. Janet?
Our employees, we had the compensation study, and our employees have what is called step increases, and it's whatever level they're at, they will probably get a step if they complete certain metrics during the year. They also this year got a COLA of 2%, so that's what we do. We combine their step increase with usually the COLA, whatever it is that particular year.
Okay, thank you. Emma?
Like Karen said, I would definitely keep in mind that it has been recently assessed, but I also think it's not something that I can just answer right now. I would definitely like to talk more with, town personnel and also the budget committee to make sure something like that is something that is doable for both us and our taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
I'm also going to kind of dodge the question, not because I'm not as familiar with it. It would seem the regular pay increases, the step increases would certainly be easier. From a very uninformed point of view, the merit increases seem like they open a can of worms, possibly, of who's determining the merit, but that's just from a very uninformed point of view. So I would need to spend more time researching.
Okay, thank you. Megan?
Thank you. Similarly, I would need to do my due diligence to understand where the town stands and just the natural course of increases. But, it's also been my experience that with leading people that supporting your employees and making sure that you can be competitive with recruiting and retaining. You have to have means to retain high-value employees, and so staying with the times and ensuring that there's cost of living increases and other opportunities to reward performance is important. So, I would take all of that into consideration. But again, I'd want to learn more stepping into the role on what other considerations from the town.
Okay, thank you. All right, next round we'll begin with Bob Lyon. Would anyone care to ask a question? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Maureen Conley. So my question is, all of you have worked in different types of work occupations, and you must have encountered times when you were in conflict with a peer. So reflecting on those experiences, can you talk about the situation that you were in conflict with someone and how you went about resolving that? Because these are contentious issues, I think, potentially, and I just want to make sure that we get people who are sort of willing to try and compromise.
All right.
What was the situation that you were in, and how did you respond to solve the problem?
Bob?
Thank you. So I'll go again, draw back on my experience at Procter & Gamble. I was project leader of a project team, and I had a physician who was not carrying the weight, and he was really opposed to what we were trying to do with the project. And basically he was saying, this drug is never going to work. Why are we even having this project? What are you doing? Why are you wasting the company's time and money? And it really detracted from the team, because the team members would look at that person and just say, well, what are we doing? He's a physician. Maybe he knows something. So I nipped that in the bud. I went and I talked to him privately. I tried to understand his point of view, and I did understand his point of view. It was his belief, actually he was a rheumatologist, it was his belief that the approach that we were taking did not stand any chance of working and we should stop the project right now. So I listened to him, I understood his point of view, I disagreed. Our job at that time was to find out, in fact, would it work, and that's why we were doing the testing. And I explained that to him, and I think we got to a point of saying, let's just agree to disagree. We're not going to agree on this, but let's agree to disagree. Let's try to make the team work a little bit better, and let's escalate this to our management. So we had a very good management escalation process where if we couldn't resolve it on the team, we could take it one step up. We could take it to a senior manager, a vice president. We could both lay out our case, and that's what we did. We laid out our case so everybody was listened to, and that person, that physician, felt so strongly about it that they ended up leaving the project team. And it was done on good terms. Everybody was happy, and we got a replacement, and that person ended up leaving the company. So that's how we resolved that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Janet?
The selectmen or select board rely on a number of committees to do various things. Like we have a waste reduction committee, a conservation committee, energy committee, and so forth. And we found that sometimes our committees may be a little bit too large, and they don't always work well together or work well with department heads. So what we found is that if we reduce the number and make it sort of a subcommittee, like the one that we had for Whipple Town Hall with Phil Sherman in charge, we came out with a much better result. So I think it's what we found, that working together is definitely possible with different numbers of people, but better with smaller groups.
Thank you. Emma?
During my time working at the rec department, a couple of summers back, I actually found out that I was making 25 cents less than my male counterpart for the same job. And in that instance, I do further, I continue to do this, but it's important that I feel like all parties that need to know are aware of it. I let my superior know that I was aware of it, and I let his superior know that I was aware of it, and I let my coworkers know that I was aware of it as well. So I feel like working together and admitting fault on all sides is very important.
Thank you. Peter?
Over the past few years at the high school, we've been adopting a new mindset, I guess, lack of a better term, for grading and things like that. And I was a member of a pilot team that was starting this earlier than others, and we were often the pilot team was often put in front of the faculty, we heard many versions of, yeah, but that can't work for my discipline, and some people got more passionate about it, and it wasn't the time to fight fire with gasoline. What we had to do is a couple of us had to break off, and I think kind of echoing what Janet said, of having smaller conversations, recognizing that oftentimes we're closer than we think. The differences that we might be butting heads with, there might be more underneath if we take a step back, if we calm down and just talk it out and maybe break it down step by step and reach some sort of compromise and recognize that we had no authority to tell them they had to do something. We're just trying to inform them, convince them this is good practice, and just open that communication and not fight fire with gasoline, I guess.
Megan?
So I think how I approach conflict, and I've had both experience and situations where I've dealt with conflict or have helped other leaders or new leaders kind of grow and manage conflict. And I think it's just really important to take a step back and be respectful in understanding where that person is coming from. I think ultimately, as a committee, you can align on similar goals. We're here to achieve our purpose and kind of keep that at the forefront of conversations. And and I think if you give and allow time to truly listen to others' perspectives, there's a point where you can meet and find a solution. I am solution oriented. I'm also willing to have the tough conversations and be clear on where we're trying to align. So, I think like many people, I don't seek conflict. I don't like it, but I'm also skilled at dealing with conflict and in a very thoughtful and collaborative, respectful manner.
Thank you. Karen?
I think what is really important in when you're in a group setting, and something I always try and keep in mind is try and keep a bit of a sense of humor at the same time, in that things that can seem like the most important thing in the world, but you can have some perspective on it, that when you take a step back a bit, you can just approach it in a more relaxed way. I've been in situations where it looks like, someone may not have been, giving 100%, and you've really had to rely on them. And what I've learned is this is where you can pull in maybe someone from the side that can assist, or you can throw in a little extra more, even though you don't really know where it's going to come from. There's always that extra 5 or 10% that can sometimes round it out and calm it down. And I think that's really important, to just be able to calm things down, be able to laugh about things in a way that, you're working real hard, you're kind of all trying to row the boat, and there are times when it's a give and take for everybody. So just keeping that in perspective, I think, is really important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next round starts with Janet Kidder, and do we have a question from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
So what is your vision for New London in the next, up to 10 years? And what would you name as a top priority and top hurdle?
And a top hurdle.
My main goal is to see the police have a department, a building and offices that are suitable and safe for them. Because we talked about it for so many years, I really feel that that's important. I think the biggest hurdle for that is money. Obviously, depending on what the cost is, it will determine whether or not we can build a new police station or keep the police right where they are, although we know that that's inadequate. The other things, I would say not to defer maintenance. We have some beautiful old buildings, but they have to be maintained. And people are, they're grown every time there's something that needs to be done at the library, but it's really a wonderful historic building. But it's going to need a new roof at some point. All of our buildings will need new roofs. So I think we have to save for that and definitely put money aside in our capital improvement plan. But money will always be the issue. Whether or not we can do all the things we want. We'd like to put in sidewalks everywhere in town, but we know that's not possible, because not only do you have to pay for the installation, but then you have to maintain them to keep the snow off and to make sure that they're safe and passable for everyone. So, but again, I would say it would be the police station is the most important for me. Okay?
Thank you. Emma?
My vision for the next 10 years will hopefully the workforce housing will be completed. I feel like that will be very important to our town, to have a place for people that work in the town to live affordably. I also really hope that both the younger and older generations can really unite. I mean, look here, is there anybody that is even in my generation? I would love to have more young people involved in town politics and involve and have a voice in the town, as well as college student. college students in this town. I'd love for there to be more retention. I'd like for there to be places that they can stay. I would love for them to want to stay. And I think that the biggest hurdle is, we have such a big gap. We have such a wide range of, oldest and youngest and all of our multiple generations. And I think, we need to constantly be keeping up with the times.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
My answer would have been a lot better 2 people ago. I think I'm going to echo a lot of what people said. What I said in my opening statement. I want my kids to have the same, New London experience as I did, and I'd like that to be attainable for all families. I would like to see more younger people, involved in things. I see it at the town meetings where I'm like, I know there should be more people here that like are my contemporaries, and so I think that's the getting more people involved is going to be, and just getting more voices heard and getting more voices at the table, and getting more viewpoints. Not that any one's is bad, but just more. Let's have more conversations. I mean, we talked about conflict before. I mean, I think out of conflict comes creativity, and some of those some of the challenges. But the challenges are always going to be money. I mean, it's balancing those wants and needs, and identifying what's important. I mean, it's all important, but what can we do? I guess.
Thank you, Megan.
Great. Excellent question. I agree. I think my vision is just to continue to see this community flourish and have it be a place that still attracts young families, and to continue to see. I think of the number of families that have moved in since we moved in 7 years ago, and watching my children grow up and be able to experience all the wonderful things that New London has to offer. I think the hurdle is the cost and the expense for young families to live here, and also supporting all of the things that make our community vibrant. So I think it's coming up with creative ways to keep the community going, and still being able to offer all of these things to live and kind of thrive in.
Thank you. Karen?
Well, it's keeping in mind for sure that the purpose of the Budget Committee is to assist the voters in the prudent appropriation of public funds. So as serving on the committee, I would want to know what the voters want for the town, because I would be serving, if I'm so lucky to be elected, I would be serving the voters. And what I hear from people is the one appreciation of what a truly special place we have here. And it's the beauty of the town, it's the people in the town, it's the mix of the town. It's not just the ability to move in here, but the ability to stay here, whether you've been here for generations or you're a newcomer, but the ability to live in the town, keep the town affordable. So that's what I would envision. That's what I'm hearing from people. And if I were to serve on the Budget Committee, I would be receptive to hearing from people throughout my time of service, because I really think it's important to know what a whole mix of people are seeking. And that's what I would like to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
I do have a vision. I've thought about this a lot, and my vision 10 years from now would be you pick up Yankee Magazine, I think they still have that, New Hampshire Magazine, maybe Arizona Highways, one of those magazines. And what do you see in there? A story about New London. New London, the gem of New England, the quintessential New England town where people clamor to move there. They desire to live there. And you read the article and it says, well, why do people want to work here? Well, because you have strong community support, and I'll use that word community again, the police force, the fire department, recreation department, highway department. Our infrastructure is sound. We have money, and somehow they do this without going crazy with taxes. This is all part of the article. So that's my vision. because it is beautiful. It's a wonderful town. It's a beautiful town. The hurdle to getting there, it all comes down to money, right? It's always money. How do you do all those things without increasing taxes? It's nearly impossible to do that. So I like to think the next paragraph in that article would say, well, they do it through creative ways to finance different projects. I got up at a selectman meeting twice when the library board was asking for a new roof, and I challenged them. I said, well, why don't you do this through a capital campaign? You guys could raise $1 million probably in a month to take care of your library. And I said, I'll give you $100 right now. I'll make the first donation to that. And it turns out they didn't need it. They got some different opinions, and maybe they don't need to do the roof, but I think that was one creative way, is to do it through capital campaigns. Another way I'd like to see it is through, we have a strong community spirit. I mean, all you people out here, you pitch in. Volunteerism can be a huge thing. We had talked about some issues down at, is it Buckland Beach on Little Lake Sunapee? And it needed to be raked. It needed to be cleaned. Well, why not get a work committee put together to do that? A few of us helped out over at the field on Main Street, over with Rip Cross's property, cutting down invasive vines. We don't have to spend money to do that. We can do it through volunteer work. So that's how I would approach that. It's a very, very difficult thing to do without money, but I think it's worth a try because we live in such a beautiful community.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we're going to start the next round with Emma, and we have a question over here. Go right ahead, Emma.
My name is Celeste. I have sat on the budget committee. I've worked with the department heads. I've felt in the last few years that the department heads are not being heard. I don't think that the department heads come in with great wish lists and, we need this, we want that. I think they come in with a budget that they feel is reasonable. And I guess what I'm asking is, how many of you see that now? I mean, I've sat at these meetings and I've heard some of the things, and they disturb me terribly.
All right, do you all understand that question? Yeah? Okay.
I wish I could answer that question, but I find that awful to hear too. And I'm not really sure.
Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think that I would listen to them. Were I elected, I would listen to them. I mean, I think as part of the process, we can ask them questions, and we can, I mean, I think that's part of the conversation that has to happen. But I can say that I would listen to them. I don't know. I can't speak to why they might not be getting listened to if they're not.
Okay. Megan?
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I can't speak to the historic conversations, but I do agree it's a conversation to be had, and I would lean on the expertise of those department heads. This is their job and the work that they do. So, I would hope that that's a very fruitful conversation that's being had between the committee members and the department heads, and I would uphold that expectation of respect through the conversations, but couldn't really speak to why, if it hasn't been in the past.
Karen?
Well, in my experience is always this kind of give and take between people that are presenting a budget and those that are in the decision-making position of whether or not that can be, what is that match? So I think from the get-go, from the start, that's why it's really important to set a direction so that people know the framework that they are working in, and you go from there, and you have that prioritization of services, and at the same time you have the expectation of funding. So balancing those two in the back and forth, but having the direction from the beginning, I think, is really important, that it sets the stage for clear communication and then the dialogue back and forth. Thank you.
Bob?
Thank you. I can't speak to the history that you presented. I would, and I don't know enough about the process of how that works right now, since I've been to one budget meeting and I haven't been to any department head meetings. I would think, my expectation would be, there would come a time during the generation of a budget, well in advance of when the budget needed to be finalized, where the Budget Committee would sit down with each department head, and we would go through their requests for funding, and we would ask very probing questions. Not to be difficult, but to find ways, again, are we going for a top shelf item? Are we going for a mid-shelf item? What do we really need? Where's the value aspect? And how can we get to a point where we agree on a budget that is good for you and also good for the community? That would be my expectation. I don't know if it works that way yet, but we'll see. Thank you.
Janet.
I do think all our department heads are more than willing to sit down with the Select Board and the Budget Committee to discuss their budget. And if they can find a way to defer some things, I think they will do that. I think the idea that many people come in with the idea, when they're on the Budget Committee, is that they're going to reduce budgets. And I think the goal should be to find the best budget for a department, not necessarily reduce it. Add to it if necessary. But I think that's what has to happen, that people don't come in thinking, I'm going to cut this budget.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next round starts with Peter. I'm going to take one more from the that's been handed in by the audience. I am tired of hearing about the police station for over 10 years without any decision being reached. Can you explain why the town government is gridlocked on this issue and nothing has happened for 10 years? Sorry, Peter.
I don't know that I can speak to the town. I think I don't know the answer to that. I think there's a lot of I think confusion. There's some conflicting ideas about needs and wants again, and I think for some it might be that we've got a list of ideas that we know what's not working, but we don't know what we're kind of getting excited about, and we don't know, like, just to go back to the high school. We recently tried to pass a pretty significant addition to the high school. It did not pass, but we knew what we were voting for. We saw, hear the plans, and I think for some that part of it, and again, this is just. I think it's we know a police station.
Okay.
What does it look like? What is the plan? Can we have a plan to vote on? Maybe we'd get a better idea.
Okay, thank you. Megan?
Similarly, I don't know why it's on a gridlock or why a final decision hasn't been, but I think it gets back to planning and being able to be transparent with what the options are. And I think with that plan in place, there should be a path forward. So I think it gets down to planning and communicating, setting our sights on a goal. And I think it can be done. I can't speak to why we just haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, Karen?
Well, it sounds like it's good timing then for a town meeting, because there's a citizen's petition coming up on town meeting. I was a signatory on that, and I think what that gives is clarity. And I think that's something we could all use right now, is clarity in that regard. It's a simply phrased question, and I look forward to the discussion at town meeting, the debate, and we'll hear what the voters have to say on it. So less important what's gone in the past, more important where we are now, and hopefully that'll be clearly communicated in just about a week or more. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes, so I took a tour of the police station with Chief Cobb and a few others last year when we were talking about this before last year's town meeting. And there's no doubt in my mind that something needs to be done. The current police station right now, it's usable, but it certainly needs improvement, to put it mildly. But then the question still remains, should it be renovated, or should we buy land and put up a brand new police station? And there's the rub. So to answer your question, you've been hearing it for 10 years, why hasn't a decision been made? I don't know. I mean, I can't answer that question. I know my own thoughts and feelings about it, but I would echo what Karen just said. We're having a town meeting next week, and there is a very simply phrased, I think it's one sentence. Do you want to continue to spend, do you want to, basically it says, do you want to keep the police station where it is, or do you want to move it? And I think that will give guidance to the select board as to how the town feels about that. But going back in the past and trying to understand, I'm sure there's multiple reasons why we haven't done anything yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Janet?
Probably the cost is the main reason it hasn't been solved. Municipal buildings are not inexpensive to build, renovate, or maintain, so there has been a reluctance to invest the funds needed to solve this problem. Also, some people are convinced that the police should stay on Siemens Road, while the police feel that the location would not allow them to have the facility that they feel they need. So location is another outstanding issue, money and location.
Okay, thank you. Em?
Kind of going back to what Bob was saying, the fact that we're still after 10 years just deciding whether or not people want it to still be at that location or not just kind of shows that I think that the fact that there's so many different methods to go about it, there's so many different outcomes, and there's many different opinions both on the select board, the budget committee, and through the citizens themselves. I think that we all need to kind of get on the same page and be more clear with each other about what we will be doing regarding that issue and what it is that the townspeople really do want and how that will look for both the budget and the select board committee.
Okay, thank you. We start with Megan on this round. Do I have a question from the audience? Oh, okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got a question on the water precinct. Currently, we have a situation where the $5 million will run the Main Street piping, but more importantly, Colby Point has a limited amount of water. Not only has Twin Pines and Continuum had to drill their own wells, and they're waiting for their 72-hour well test. My question is, how would you propose to involve the New London Springfield precinct in not only budget meetings, but housing meetings, zoning meetings, so that they can give their input as we have a limited water supply sometime in the future? But if we don't start involving them in the meetings and have them review some of the plans for some of the upcoming buildings, I think we're going to face a major problem. So I'd like to know, how do you feel we could involve the New London Springfield precinct in all of the committee decisions which affect all of us, i.e. water?
Megan.
So I'm not sure what the current process looks like, but I think it would be really important to make sure we have, whether it's a subcommittee or some sort of forum where the appropriate people are coming together to put forth a plan and more than just solving the problem, but what does kind of the capital improvement plan look like, and how does that phase out over time? But I think first, starting the conversations, bringing the right people together, and ensuring that it's starting as a planning committee from the beginning versus trying to pull in other members later on to make sure that there's, again, a clear goal and focus of the team.
Okay, Karen?
One, I would encourage everyone that wants to be really informed about this issue to take the time to play on YouTube, the town's YouTube channel, the December 14th Board of Selectmen meeting. Ken Jakes, the chairman of the New London Springfield Water Precinct, gave a presentation at that meeting that some of us have referred to as a masterclass. Goes into the history, goes into the Clean Water Act, discusses where things are today. So that's a really nice shorthand way to be informed. And we really have seen the importance of those two entities working together in terms of, at least in terms of communication. The precinct is a separate legal entity from the town. So its obligation is to its precinct, is to the water precinct. And we've seen where there's a lot of overlap between what the town needs, what the direction the town is going in and what the resources the precinct has available. So I strongly suggest that you take the time to watch that, and the interplay between the water, the public water system, and the town, and desired growth in the town is going to be really important to get resolved. So I don't have the answer for it now, but I think it's an important one that the town make a priority as to how the direction going forward is going to work in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Thank you. So one of the things in running projects and teams, and we can look at the select board and the budget committee, these are all teams, these are groups of people working together. One of the challenges in doing that, especially when you have separate groups, is that this group over here will say something and agree to something, but this group over here disagrees with it. And you end up with differing narratives on the same subject. And it becomes really difficult to wrap your arms around that when you're trying to make progress. And I'm leading up to something here, and I think John, you'll know what I'm talking about. So Karen hit it on the head. Ken Jakes gave a master class. It was about an hour's presentation about the history of the water supply, what's going on, timing, costs, just incredible. And he did it off the top of his head. It was really a master class in giving a talk. Well, I thought I'd understood what was going on, and I took that to heart, but then I went to a selectman meeting, and I heard, well, oh, he's got a different agenda. It's not going to happen in his lifetime. I don't even know what he was talking about. And I thought, this is not right. So I even said at that meeting, I said, look, Ken Jakes is not here to defend himself. What would really help me, and I think to answer your question, John, what I would do is the first thing on this particular issue is put Ken and the select board in the same room and let them debate for an hour or 2 hours in front of the public, and let's walk out of there with an agreement on what the status is, so we don't have one person saying one thing and then 2 weeks later somebody else is saying something else and you don't know what the truth is. So I think watching that debate, understanding when people are talking to each other, and then have that published in the Intertown, you've got it locked down. I mean, to me, that's how I would handle that. I'm not sure that's not really a budget committee issue, but if you're asking me how I would do it, that's what I would do.
Thank you. Janet?
With regard to the water precinct, any development that comes to town, like Continuum or Twin Pines, has to go to the planning board first. And they will check with the water precinct to see if there's water capacity for their development. In both cases, there wasn't water capacity, although there was enough for water suppression. All the buildings that are going to be built by both entities will have sprinklers, and so there is a capacity in the water precinct to do that. So anytime there's a new development being proposed in town, which I don't think there are, they will have to go to the planning board, and the planning board will check with the water precinct commissioners to see if there is water capacity for their project. Continuum and Twin Pines both are drilling wells, and apparently they have found water. So I guess that's not going to be an issue for those two developments.
Thank you. Emma?
Kind of touching back on what Megan was saying, I think it would be pretty invaluable to have some sort of subcommittee where both citizens of New London and citizens of Springfield can kind of work together and talk, and then as well, bring that to these town meetings and these select board meetings and with the planning committee. I think that if we're all kind of on the same page and we're all communicating, especially we're getting citizens from Springfield who can actually attest what it is like. I live in Springfield. This is how I feel about it. I think that will be important. That would be important.
Peter?
Sounds like we need to involve Ken Jakes more. I don't know what beyond, if we don't have water, I don't know what we would be doing. So I can't see why we wouldn't. If he is the expert, and it sounds like he is, I would hope we would refer to those that have the answers, and plan around that, and refer to the experts.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're getting towards the end. Do we have anybody else who has a question? All right, I see no more questions on the floor. Would you all like a really easy question? And somebody took the trouble to print this up, so they must want to know. We'll be starting with Karen. Do you think there should be term limits or an age limit on members of the Select Board or the Budget Committee? If so, what should they be?
Well, both of those committees, the Board of Select Board, the Select Board and Budget Committee, are elected positions. So I think the term limits in those situations need to be set by the voters. The voters get to vote people in, and they can vote people out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Bob?
Off the top of my head, I don't think we need to have term limits or age limits. I think it's up to the voters. If they see someone that could be, I don't know, I'll make up a number, 87 years old, 90 years old, and they're still functioning well, and they're doing well, I have no problem with that, but it's up to the voters to decide that.
Okay, Janet?
Well, since we're not talking about the Supreme Court, I would say no, we don't need term limits. Thank you.
Okay, Emma?
I think it just kind of like previous candidates talked about, I think it should be something that's set by the voters. And if we were to have an age limit, we should have an age minimum. I don't think it would be very fair to limit just somebody just because of their old age.
Peter?
No, I think it should be up to the voters.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to start our closing statements now, and we began with Janet, so this time we'll begin with Bob.
Thank you very much for your patience and your attention, and also your excellent questions. I really hadn't thought too much about a closing statement. I thought I'd leave it up to what happened here tonight. And I still would walk away with, we have an outstanding community. Look at the participation in here tonight. I've laid out a vision, my vision for what New London would be 10 years from now, and laid out also what the challenge would be, which is it always comes down to money and how we can surmount that. But I think with creative financing methods and also volunteerism, I think that's something that could go far in helping us get there. So thank you again.
Janet?
Okay. As a former business owner, I understand the budgetary constraints on our taxpayers, but I respect our department heads to submit budgets asking only for what is needed. I believe an effective select person must have a variety of leadership skills, including the ability to listen respectfully to both sides of an issue, remain open-minded, collaborate, and make decisions for all the residents of the town. These skills, together with historical perspective, have allowed me to understand the issues facing our town and make reasonable conclusions. New London is a town we can all be proud to call home. Thank you.
Thank you. Emma?
I want to thank everyone out for coming out tonight. I've been very lucky to work with a number of dedicated New London citizens during this campaign, and I am sincerely grateful for their guidance and support. I'm excited to be in this town and excited to be part of its future. I really appreciate all of you guys hearing me out. I was very nervous today, and this is something I'm not usually used to doing, but it's definitely not the last that you guys will see of me.
Peter?
I hadn't given much thought to a closing statement either. Like I said, I'm a lifelong resident of New London. It's a fantastic place to be. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. We definitely have our challenges. We definitely have our disagreements. But I know we can work through them through compromise, through conversation. Love to be part of the process to continue making this place just a great place to be.
Thank you. Megan?
Thank you, and thank you again, everyone, for your time tonight. But I guess in closing, I also love living in New London. I really value public service, and I hope that I can bring my experience in leadership to be a team member, really to be thoughtful and collaborative in our approach, working as a team among the budget committee, to making sure that we continue to align on our values as a community, ensuring that our budget supports where we'd like to see our community go. So thank you.
And Karen?
It has been terrific learning about what is on your mind. So many great questions. Thank you all. You really had us thinking very deeply, and thank you. I can commit to spending the time and effort needed to fulfill the obligation required of the budget committee and to become a valuable member of it. It is a big commitment. I've seen that level of commitment as I've attended throughout the past year, and one that I am eager to make, and as I have the interest, time, and aptitude for it. My record is one of working collegially, an important attribute as very consequential decisions are on the horizon that will require our attention and engaged deliberation on. As we close tonight, I am asking that you make a wise investment by spending one of your 3 votes for Budget Committee on me. I welcome hearing from you now and in the future at KarenE4BC@gmail.com. Please feel free to be in touch, and thank you for your consideration.
All right, we thank all of our candidates for coming tonight and also for running for office, for making that commitment to the town. And we hope that tonight has given you some information that will help you spend your precious votes wisely on Election Day next Tuesday. And we hope to see you all at the town meeting. So thank you again for coming out on such a